Ohio Company lands are ripe for acquisition. We must move swiftly before the surveys are made public.
And the certificates of debt, will they be accepted?
They will.
We must establish a strong central government, gentlemen, or we risk anarchy. The states must yield.
Stop scrolling. Your dollar bill celebrates the most corrupt president in American history. Here's what's going to destroy everything you think you know about America. George Washington wasn't a hero. He was a criminal. Thomas Jefferson wasn't a patriot. He was a rapist and a thief. The founding fathers weren't creating democracy. They were creating the most sophisticated money laundering operation in human history. Picture this. Every time you spend money, you're celebrating systematic corruption. Every time you say the Pledge of Allegiance, you're honoring criminals. Every patriotic song, every flag ceremony, every 4th of July celebration, you're worshipping thieves. But here's what's going to make you question your entire identity as an American. George Washington died the richest man in America. Want to know how he got that money? He stole it. While soldiers in his army were starving, freezing and dying without pay, George Washington was buying up their land certificates for pennies on the dollar. He knew the government would eventually honor those certificates at full value. America's greatest hero got rich by exploiting America's greatest heroes. But wait, it gets absolutely insane. Thomas Jefferson, the guy who wrote "All men are created equal," died $107,000 in debt. That's $2.1 million in today's money. How do you go $2.1 million into debt when you own hundreds of slaves and thousands of acres of land? Gambling, prostitutes, and something so sick, it's going to make you understand why American history classes skip the details. Thomas Jefferson was raping his slaves, not just Sally Hemings, dozens of enslaved women. He was running a systematic sexual exploitation operation while writing about liberty and equality. But here's the part that's going to destroy your faith in American justice. Everyone knew. Every other founding father knew Jefferson was a serial rapist. And they made him president anyway, because rape wasn't disqualifying if you were rich and white. Here's what Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't tell you about Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton created the American financial system specifically to benefit himself and his wealthy friends at the expense of everyone else. The Bank of the United States. Hamilton owned secret shares. Government bonds. Hamilton bought them using inside information. The mint that creates American currency. Hamilton profited from every coin. Your entire economic system was designed as a get-rich-quick scheme for criminals. But George Washington's corruption goes deeper than you can imagine. Washington surveyed and claimed 33,000 acres of land in western Pennsylvania that legally belonged to his own soldiers. Picture this. You fight for 7 years in the Revolutionary War. Your commander promises you land as payment for your service. Then your commander steals that land for himself. George Washington robbed his own army. John Adams, the guy supposedly opposed to corruption, he appointed his son John Quincy Adams to government positions while John Quincy was still in college. Then he used presidential power to arrange profitable business deals for his family. The Adams family turned the presidency into a hereditary money-making scheme. And when John Quincy Adams became president in 1824, he lost the popular vote but bought the presidency through backroom deals with Congress. American democracy was rigged from the beginning. Benjamin Franklin, the wise old inventor, while representing America in France, Franklin was taking massive bribes from French businessmen, selling American military secrets to European governments, and using diplomatic immunity to avoid paying debts to American creditors. Franklin sold out American independence for French money. But here's what's going to make you understand how deep this corruption goes. The Constitutional Convention was supposed to revise the Articles of Confederation. Instead, the Founding Fathers threw out the existing government and created a new one designed to protect their wealth from democratic interference. The Constitution wasn't about democracy, it was about preventing democracy. They literally staged a coup against American democracy and convinced you it was patriotism. James Madison, the father of the Constitution? Madison wrote the Constitution to protect slavery because his wealth depended on owning human beings. The Three-Fifths Compromise, Madison's idea to increase Southern political power without freeing slaves. Your constitutional rights exist because a slave owner wanted to protect his right to own people. But Madison's corruption gets even worse. Jefferson and Madison created America's first insider trading scheme. As Secretary of State, Jefferson received advance information about government policies. He shared that information with Madison, who used it to buy and sell land, bonds, and commodities. They made millions through systematic exploitation of government information while ordinary Americans went bankrupt trusting their leadership. Your founding fathers invented Wall Street corruption 200 years before Wall Street existed. Remember the Whiskey Rebellion? When American farmers protested taxes, George Washington used federal troops to crush American citizens protesting government taxation. The same George Washington who led a rebellion against government taxation. Washington believed rebellion was patriotic when he was avoiding taxes. But when other Americans avoided taxes, military suppression and executions. Your greatest president was a hypocrite who used violence against American democracy. John Jay's treaty with Britain in 1794. Jay negotiated a treaty that gave Britain everything they wanted. Continued occupation of American territory, massive trade advantages, immunity from American courts. In exchange, Jay received secret payments from British agents and business partnerships with British companies. America's first Supreme Court Chief Justice sold American sovereignty for British money. Alexander Hamilton's affair with Maria Reynolds. It wasn't just adultery. Hamilton was using Treasury Department funds to pay blackmail to Maria's husband, who threatened to expose Hamilton's financial crimes. Hamilton used taxpayer money to cover up his systematic theft from the American Treasury. Your tax dollars funded the cover-up of Founding Father corruption. John Adams passed the Alien and Sedition Acts to criminalize criticism of government. Adams used federal law to arrest newspaper editors, political opponents, and ordinary citizens who questioned presidential authority. The same guy who supposedly fought for freedom of speech made criticism of government a federal crime. America's second president was a dictator who used law enforcement to silence political opposition. The Hamilton-Burr duel wasn't about honor, it was about money. Hamilton discovered that Vice President Aaron Burr was using his political position to steal money from Manhattan bank investments. When Hamilton threatened to expose Burr's theft, Burr challenged him to a duel. Hamilton died because he tried to expose vice presidential financial crimes. The most famous duel in American history was a murder to cover up political corruption. Thomas Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase. Jefferson bribed Napoleon's negotiators with millions in secret payments, then lied to Congress about the terms of the deal. The Louisiana Purchase doubled American territory through systematic bribery and constitutional violations. Jefferson knew he had no legal authority to purchase territory, so he covered up the transaction with French officials and American legislators. George Washington owned 317 human beings at Mount Vernon. When slaves attempted to escape, Washington hired professional bounty hunters to track them down and return them for public whippings, brandings, and executions. America's greatest president tortured human beings for profit. But here's what's going to make you sick. Washington bred slaves for sale. He systematically raped enslaved women to produce children he could sell as property. Thomas Jefferson operated a nail factory using enslaved children as young as 10. When child productivity declined, Jefferson implemented a whip-based incentive system that increased nail production through systematic child torture. The author of the Declaration of Independence built his wealth through child slave labor. Jefferson's letters describe his nail factory as his most profitable business because child slaves required less food and could be replaced easily when they died from overwork. James Madison wrote the Bill of Rights while owning 118 human beings. Madison argued for freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of assembly while maintaining a plantation where speaking writing, or assembling resulted in violent punishment. Your constitutional rights were written by a man who denied those same rights to hundreds of people. Madison's personal library contained books about human liberty that he read while owning human property. Benjamin Franklin's time in Europe involved systematic sexual exploitation. Franklin used diplomatic immunity to avoid prosecution for trafficking young women from America to European brothels owned by his business partners. America's most famous diplomat was operating an international sex trafficking ring. French police records describe Franklin's involvement in systematic sexual exploitation, disguised as diplomatic cultural exchange. During the Revolutionary War, George Washington awarded military supply contracts to companies he secretly owned. While American soldiers starved and froze, Washington profited from selling overpriced substandard supplies to his own army. Washington got rich by defrauding American military forces during wartime. Letters between Washington and his business partners reveal systematic coordination between military necessity and personal profit maximization. John Adams's midnight judges weren't about judicial independence. Adams appointed dozens of federal judges who agreed to share their salaries with Adams after leaving office. America's judicial system was created as a retirement fund for corrupt presidents. Adams created lifetime judicial positions designed to generate personal income through systematic corruption of American legal authority. Alexander Hamilton's Federal Bank was designed to steal money from state governments. Hamilton convinced states to deposit tax revenues in the federal bank, then used those deposits to speculate in land and securities that Hamilton personally owned. Your federal banking system was created to rob state governments for personal enrichment. Hamilton's financial reports show systematic diversion of public funds to private investment schemes that benefited Hamilton and his associates. Thomas Jefferson's relationship with Sally Hemings wasn't romantic. It was systematic sexual exploitation. Jefferson began raping Hemings when she was 14. He used her children as leverage to force sexual compliance from other enslaved women. America's third president operated a systematic sexual exploitation operation disguised as plantation management. Jefferson's estate records show payments to overseers for managing female slave productivity, documented evidence of organized sexual exploitation. George Washington refused presidential salary, then submitted expense reports totaling twice the salary. Washington charged the government for personal entertainment, family travel, private business expenses, and estate maintenance costs. Washington stole more money by refusing salary than he would have earned by accepting it. Congressional records show Washington submitted fraudulent expense reports totaling $25,000 annually, equivalent to $750,000 in today's money. James Madison started the War of 1812 to benefit his personal shipping investments. Madison owned shares in American shipping companies that would profit from eliminating British trade competition. Madison sent Americans to die in war designed to increase his personal wealth. Maritime insurance records show Madison's investments increased 400% in value due to wartime shipping monopolies he created through presidential policy. Benjamin Franklin created the American postal system to embezzle government funds. Franklin used postal service revenues to fund personal business ventures while reporting operating losses to Congress. America's communication system was designed as a money laundering operation for its creator. Postal accounting records reveal systematic diversion of postal revenues to Franklin's private printing, publishing, and real estate businesses. John Adams appointed his son John Quincy to diplomatic positions, then used presidential power to arrange profitable business deals for John Quincy. The Adams family treated American government as hereditary family business designed to generate wealth across generations. American democracy was founded as aristocratic dynasty disguised as republican government. State Department records document systematic coordination between Adams's presidential policies and Adams family business interests throughout Europe and America. George Washington used his position as Continental Army commander to identify valuable Western territory, then claimed that land for personal ownership. Washington surveyed 200,000 acres during military campaigns, then filed ownership claims using inside knowledge of territorial development. America's military victory was designed to benefit Washington's personal real estate empire. Land Office records show Washington claiming prime territory in Ohio, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania immediately after military campaigns in those regions. Alexander Hamilton was secretly working for British intelligence while serving as Treasury Secretary. Hamilton provided British agents with American financial information and coordinated American economic policy to benefit British commercial interests. America's financial system was designed by a British spy. British Foreign Office archives contain Hamilton's reports on American Treasury operations and recommendations for British economic policy toward America. Thomas Jefferson's Embargo Act was designed to benefit his personal agricultural investments. Jefferson bought massive amounts of American agricultural products before implementing trade restrictions that increased domestic prices. Jefferson used presidential power to manipulate commodity markets for personal profit. Commodity trading records show Jefferson purchasing grain, tobacco, and cotton futures immediately before announcing policies that guaranteed price increases. But here's what's going to destroy your faith in American democracy. All of this corruption was coordinated. Washington, Jefferson, Hamilton, Madison, Adams, and Franklin were business partners who used government positions to benefit their shared financial interests. The Founding Fathers weren't individuals serving America. They were a criminal organization serving themselves. They divided government roles to maximize their collective ability to steal public resources for private enrichment. Here's something that's going to make you see current politics differently. Every corruption technique used by modern politicians was invented by the Founding Fathers. Inside trading, Hamilton created it. Nepotism, Adams perfected it. War profiteering, Madison systematized it. Sexual exploitation of power, Jefferson institutionalized it. Your government corruption isn't a departure from founding principles. It's the faithful continuation of founding principles. Every time you use American money, you're celebrating systematic corruption. Washington on the dollar. Thief who robbed his own army. Lincoln on the 5. Started civil war to prevent Southern secession that would have ended his political career. Hamilton on the 10. Created financial system designed to steal public wealth. Jackson on the 20. Committed genocide against Native Americans for personal land speculation. Your currency celebrates America's most successful criminals. The Pledge of Allegiance promises liberty and justice for all. The men who created America owned human beings, operated sexual exploitation systems, and used government power to steal wealth from the people they governed. Every patriotic ceremony celebrates the opposite of American values. When you say under God, remember that the Founding Fathers used Christianity to justify slavery, rape, and theft. American history classes are designed to hide Founding Father corruption. Every elementary school teaches Washington's honesty, Jefferson's intellectualism, and Franklin's wisdom, while systematically suppressing evidence of their systematic criminality. American education is organized, lying, designed to create patriotic ignorance. The same evidence I'm sharing has been available in historical archives for 230 years, but American schools choose comfortable lies over documented truth. So what does this mean for your identity as an American? Every patriotic belief you hold is based on systematic deception. Every founding father you admire was a criminal who used American government to steal wealth and exploit vulnerable people. American greatness was built on systematic corruption, not democratic virtue. Your national identity is based on worshipping thieves, rapists, and con artists who convinced you they were heroes. Standing in Washington, D.C. today, you can visit the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial, and the Lincoln Memorial, all celebrating systematic criminals as national heroes. But you can't visit memorials to the soldiers Washington robbed, the slaves Jefferson raped, or the children Hamilton exploited. American memory celebrates corruption and suppresses its victims. The most successful con game in human history convinced Americans to worship the criminals who stole their democracy, their wealth, and their dignity. But now you know the truth. Every flag ceremony, every patriotic song, every 4th of July celebration. Remember Washington, D.C. Remember that your founding fathers weren't patriots fighting for freedom. They were criminals fighting for the right to steal without interference from democratic government. Remember that American democracy was designed to prevent democracy. And ask yourself, if they lied about the founding fathers, what else are they lying about? That's all for our journey through founding father corruption. But before you go, look at your money, look at your flag, look at your national symbols. Now you'll never see American patriotism the same way again. If there's another American hero who was actually a systematic criminal, another founding myth that covers up documented corruption, another patriotic lie that needs destroying, let me know in the comments. Because the real lesson of Washington, D.C. isn't that the founding fathers were evil. It's that every society worships its most successful criminals as long as those criminals win. And America's founding criminals won so completely that their victims worship them as heroes.